My mom used her psychiatric notes as scripture and burned us every week in the name of purification. When I asked her why, she sobbed, "You don't know what dirty really is. I can still feel it." I walked away without saying a word. That was 11 months ago. This morning, she sat in group therapy, holding a drawing Emma made, with her figure drawn furthest from the family, but still holding a string. In my family, we had something called the cleansing hour. It happened every Saturday at 6 p.m. exactly. It wasn't like regular bath time. We'd line up in the hallway wearing these thin white robes while Mom stood at the bathroom door with her leather book. She'd clutch it against her chest like it was the most important thing in the world. The book was supposedly the Purification guide from her grandmother. Mom would run the shower and test it with this old thermometer until it hit exactly 115 degrees. Then she'd call us in one by one. You had to stand under that scalding water while she read. No moving, no crying, no sound at all. I still remember the first time I failed. I was 7 and the water hit my back like 1,000 needles. I yelped and jumped out. Mom's face went completely blank. She slowly turned the page and said, "Again." My skin was already bright red, but I stepped back in. She started reading from the beginning. The passages never made sense. Something about dirt in the blood and contamination of the soul. She'd read in this flat, dead voice while we cooked under that spray. 5 minutes exactly. Unless you messed up, then it was longer. My little brother Jake learned to bite down on a washcloth so hard his jaw would ache for hours. Emma would dig her nails into her palms and recite multiplication tables in her head. I'd picture myself somewhere cold. Anywhere cold. Antarctica, a freezer, the grocery store ice cream aisle. Anything to not feel my skin burning. Dad was never home for it. Always worked Saturday evenings at the hospital. Convenient. When I asked him about cleansing hour once, he just looked confused and changed the subject. Mom must have seen my face because she pulled me aside later. "This is just for us," she said. "Other families wouldn't understand our traditions." I believed that for years. Thought everyone had some weird family thing they did. Then in 7th grade, I spent the night at Lauren's house. Her mom casually said we should wash up for dinner, and I asked where their purification supplies were. The silence was deafening. Lauren's mom gently asked what I meant. I mumbled something about forgetting she wasn't family and locked myself in their normal temperature bathroom to cry. That's when the doubt started. But it wasn't until I was 16 that everything shattered. I'd been fighting Mom about cleansing hour for months, telling her I was too old, that it was weird. She'd get this 1,000-yard stare and whisper, "You don't know what dirty really is." It made my skin crawl every time. One Saturday, she left for her pottery class, and I decided to find that damn book. I needed to see what was so important that we had to suffer for it every week. I ransacked her closet like a woman possessed. Finally found it wrapped in plastic inside an old shoebox. My hands shook as I unwrapped it. The leather felt wrong, too new. Inside the front cover was a stamp that made my blood run cold. Property of Riverside Psychiatric Hospital. I sat on her bedroom floor and started reading. The pages weren't printed. They were handwritten. Medical notes, treatment plans, all about a patient with severe OCD and trauma-related washing compulsions. The name was blacked out, but I could see the ghost of letters underneath. MRA. My mother's name is Moira. I kept digging, found more boxes behind her winter coats, hospital bracelets with dates from before I was born, admission papers describing a 19-year-old girl who scrubbed her skin until it bled, who couldn't stop washing, who believed she was contaminated. Then I found her personal journal, her real one. My heart hammered as I read about a college girl doing laundry at night, about a maintenance man who said he was fixing the dryer, about what happened in that empty room, about how she couldn't get clean no matter how hot the water was. The last entry was after Emma was born. Mom wrote about bringing contaminated babies into a filthy world, about needing to teach us, about finding a way to make us understand what dirty really meant. She'd been reading her own psychiatric notes to us, making us stand in water as hot as she used to use, making us feel what she felt every Saturday for our entire lives. I heard the garage door, shoved everything back except her journal, met her in the kitchen with it in my shaking hands. She saw it and all the color drained from her face. "How could you?" My voice cracked like I was 7 again. She collapsed into a chair, started picking at her cuticles until they bled. "I needed you to be clean. I needed you to understand." "Understand what? That you were hurt? We already knew something was wrong with you." She flinched. "You don't know what he did in that laundry room, how dirty he made me, how I can still feel it no matter how much I wash. So you made us feel it too? Every week?" She started sobbing then, not crying, breaking, like 16 years of punishment was finally ending. Mom rocked back and forth in the kitchen chair, clutching the journal to her chest. Her sobs turned into this keening sound that made my stomach twist. I stood frozen, watching her unravel completely. The house felt different now, like all the walls had turned to glass and everyone could see our shame. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Jake appeared in the doorway first, his dinosaur pajamas making him look younger than his 11 years. He took one look at Mom and his face scrunched up in confusion. "What's wrong with Mom?" His voice cracked on the last word. Mom's head snapped up at the sound of his voice. Her sobs intensified, turning into these horrible gasping sounds. She reached out toward him with one shaking hand, while still clutching the journal with the other. Jake took a step backward, bumping into Emma, who'd appeared behind him. I moved fast, putting myself between them and Mom. My hands found their shoulders and I turned them around, guiding them back toward the stairs. Jake tried to look back, but I kept pushing. "Mom just dropped something special," I said, the lie tasting bitter. "Go back upstairs, I'll handle it." Emma's green eyes studied my face. At 9, she was too smart for her own good. She leaned close as we reached the bottom of the stairs. I heard yelling, she whispered, and crying. Something bad happened. My chest tightened. All those years we'd protected them from knowing how messed up things really were, and now it was crumbling. Jake was already halfway up the stairs, but Emma stayed put, her small hand gripping the banister. "Please," I said, "just go to your room. I'll explain later." She gave me one more searching look before following Jake. I waited until I heard their doors close before returning to the kitchen. Mom hadn't moved. She sat there rocking, the journal pressed against her chest like armor. I pulled out my phone to text Dad, then stopped. What would I even say? That I'd found out our mother had been torturing us for years because of her own trauma? That everything we thought was tradition was actually mental illness? The sound of a car in the driveway made my decision for me. I checked the clock. 3:47 p.m. Millie Dad wasn't supposed to be home for hours. My hands started shaking as I recognized the familiar rumble of his Honda. Mom didn't react to the garage door opening. She just kept rocking, lost in whatever horrible memories the journal had triggered. I heard Dad's footsteps in the mudroom, the jingle of his keys hitting the hook. "Hello?" he called out. "Got a call from the hospital about a family emergency. Someone used my name but wouldn't identify themselves." "What's going?" He stopped dead in the kitchen doorway. His eyes went from me to Mom to the journal. I watched the confusion on his face shift to concern, then to alarm as he took in Mom's state. Moira? He moved toward her slowly, like she was a wounded animal. What's happening? Mom's rocking stopped. She looked up at him with eyes that didn't quite focus. Dad reached for the journal and she jerked back, but not fast enough. He caught the edge and pulled. For a moment, they played tug of war with her deepest secrets. Let go, Dad said, his doctor voice taking over, calm but firm. Moira, let me see. No! Mom lunged forward, trying to grab it back. You don't understand. They need to be clean. I have to keep them clean. Dad held the journal out of reach and flipped it open. I watched his face as he read. The color drained from his cheeks. His jaw tightened. He turned a page, then another, reading faster. Jesus Christ, he breathed. Moira, what is this? I had to tell her. My voice came out strangled. Dad, she's been... The cleansing hour. It's not. She's been making us. Dad's eyes snapped to me. Making you what? The words tumbled out. About the scalding water. The psychiatric notes she read like scripture. The way she made us stand there burning while she relived her trauma through us. His face went through so many emotions I couldn't track them all. Disbelief, rage, horror. Show me, he said when I finished. Show me your skin. I rolled up my sleeves. The scars were faint now, just slightly darker patches where the worst burns had been. Dad's hands shook as he examined them. Then his eyes went wide. Emma, he said. Oh God, Emma's shoulders. I'd forgotten about those. The time she'd moved too soon and Mom had made her start over. And over. And over. The burns had been so bad we'd had to make excuses at school about a cooking accident. Mom started talking then, words spilling out in a frantic rush. You don't understand what it's like. The contamination. It gets inside you. Spreads. I couldn't let it spread to them. I had to teach them how to get clean. How to stay clean. The world is so dirty, David. So dirty, and they needed to know. Stop. Dad backed away from her. Just stop. A small voice came from the doorway. Are you guys getting divorced? Jake stood there in his dinosaur pajamas, looking between our parents. Something feels off about how Dad just happened to come home early because of a mysterious emergency call. I wonder who really made that call and why they wouldn't identify themselves. The timing seems too perfect with everything unraveling right now. The word hung in the air like a bomb about to go off. Mom made a wounded sound. Dad's face crumpled. No, buddy, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. We need to figure some things out. You're getting divorced, Jake said. Not a question this time. Tommy's parents yelled like this before his dad moved out. Emma appeared beside him. She'd changed into jeans and a sweater, like she was preparing for something. Too smart for her own good. Dad ran his hands through his hair. Kids, you're going to stay at Grandma's tonight. No! Mom shot up from her chair. They can't leave. It's not safe. She doesn't understand the protocols. The contamination. There is no contamination. Dad's voice rose. There's no protocol. There's just you hurting our children because someone hurt you. Mom flinched like he'd slapped her. Jake started crying. Emma grabbed his hand. I helped Dad pack bags while Mom followed us around the house, begging and pleading. She kept talking about safety and cleanliness and protection. Dad's jaw stayed clenched the whole time. When we loaded into the car, Mom tried to block the driveway with her body. Please, she said. They're not safe out there. Only I know how to keep them safe. Dad inched the car forward until she had to move. I watched her in the side mirror as we drove away. She stood in the driveway getting smaller and smaller, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something in. Grandma lived 20 minutes away in a tidy ranch house that always smelled like cinnamon. She met us at the door already in crisis mode. Must have gotten Dad's call. She hugged each of us kids, murmuring soothing nonsense. Why don't you three go get settled, she said. Guest room and the pull-out in the den. Emma went straight to the bathroom. Through the thin walls, I heard the water running and running and running. Grandma noticed too. She knocked gently. Everything okay, sweetheart? Just washing my hands, Emma called back. Grandma's face changed. She pushed the door open. Emma stood at the sink with her hands under the tap, steam rising. The water was turned as hot as it would go. Oh, honey, Grandma said. That's too hot. You'll hurt yourself. Emma yanked her hands back, but I'd already seen how red they were. I like it hot. It gets you cleaner. Grandma turned the tap to cool and guided Emma's hands back under. Cold water cleans just as well. Who told you it had to be hot? Emma looked at me, then at the floor. Sunday baths are supposed to be hot. Mom says, Sunday baths? Grandma's voice sharpened. What Sunday baths? The silence stretched out. Emma picked at a hangnail, a gesture so like Mom it made my chest hurt. Finally, I answered. Every Saturday at 6. Mom calls it the cleansing hour. Grandma's face went white. She sat down hard on the edge of the tub. How long? Always, Jake said from the doorway. Since forever. Dear God, Grandma whispered. I knew she was particular about cleanliness after college, but I never. Why didn't you tell someone? Mom said other families wouldn't understand our traditions, I said. Grandma made a sound like she'd been punched. She gathered us all into a hug that smelled like cinnamon and laundry soap. Normal things. Safe things. Dad stayed for another hour, talking to Grandma in hushed tones in the kitchen. I caught fragments. Mandatory reporter, child services, psychiatric evaluation, words that made everything real in a way it hadn't been before. After he left, we tried to pretend things were normal. Grandma made grilled cheese and tomato soup. We watched a movie, but Emma kept checking the locks on the doors. Jake wouldn't sit with his back to the windows, and I kept waiting for Mom to show up and drag us back to that house of scalding water and psychiatric scripture. That night, Emma's screams woke the whole house. I found her thrashing in the guest bed, soaked in sweat, crying about drowning, about water too hot to breathe, about being dirty forever. I held her while she sobbed, feeling the weight of what Mom had done settling into my bones. The damage went so deep, deeper than skin, deeper than scars. It's okay, I lied. You're safe now. But Emma's fingers found the faded burns on her shoulders, tracing them like a map of our mother's madness. I can still feel it, she whispered. The water, I can always feel it. In the morning, Jake wouldn't shower. Grandma found him standing outside the bathroom in his pajamas, staring at the door like it might bite him. She didn't force it, just gave him a pack of wet wipes and told him that was fine for today. I found her crying in the kitchen afterward, silent tears rolling down her cheeks as she made breakfast. She wiped them away when she saw me. I should have known, she said. The signs were there. I just thought she was particular. My phone buzzed. Mom, again, the 15th text since we'd left. Please come home. Dad doesn't understand the danger. You're not safe there. The contamination will spread. Please, I'm trying to protect you. I deleted it without responding, but the words stuck in my head. Protection. That's what she thought she'd been doing all those years. Protecting us from something that only existed in her broken mind. Dad picked us up after lunch to take us to a therapist. Jake threw a massive tantrum in the driveway, screaming that he wasn't crazy, that he didn't need a shrink, that this was all Mom's fault, and why she should he have to go? You're not crazy, Dad said, wrestling him into the car. None of you are. But sometimes when bad things happen, it helps to talk to someone. Mom's the crazy one, Jake shouted. Make her go. The waiting room had cheerful yellow walls and toys for younger kids. I recognized another family from school, the Hendersons. Their daughter was in Emma's grade. The shame burned hotter than any shower as they carefully didn't look at us. We each went in alone. I lied, minimized, said it wasn't that bad. The therapist, a woman with kind eyes and gray hair, took notes and nodded, but I could see she wasn't buying it. Through the thin walls, I heard Emma in the next room, her little voice describing everything in brutal detail. The temperature, the timer, the way Mom's voice went flat when she read, the way the water felt like burning alive but you couldn't move or it would start over. Sometimes I still feel dirty, Emma said, like it's inside me and won't come out no matter how hot the water is. When we came out, the therapist pulled Dad aside. I heard her saying words like trauma bonding and normalized abuse and learned behaviors. Dad's face got grayer with every word. The drive back to Grandma's was silent except for Jake asking if Mom was going to jail. Dad's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I don't know, he said finally. I don't know what's going to happen, but I knew. Sitting in that car with my damaged siblings and my shattered father, I knew. Our family was broken, had been broken for years. We just hadn't known it. The water had washed away more than dirt. It had washed away trust and safety and all the normal things families were supposed to have. And no matter how hot we made it, we'd never get clean of what she'd done to us. The sound of Mom's car engine idling outside Grandma's house at 3 a.m. jolted me awake. I crept to the window and saw her sitting there, headlights off, just watching. My hands trembled as I texted Dad. He called the police, but by the time they arrived, she'd driven away. The officer took notes and explained that without direct threats, they couldn't do much. I watched him leave, feeling the weight of Mom's obsession pressing against the windows. Grandma found the address scribbled on a napkin the next morning. Mom had gotten it from the school's emergency contact forms. She changed all the locks that day, her hands steady despite the fear in her eyes. Emma watched from the couch, methodically washing her hands with sanitizer every few minutes until the skin cracked. School became a minefield. My English teacher, Mrs. Catherine, pulled me aside after class, noting the dark circles under my eyes and my inability to focus. She offered to talk, her voice gentle but probing. I mumbled excuses about family stress and fled to the bathroom, where I found Emma at the sink, water running hot enough to fog the mirror. The school nurse was already on her way. Mom's texts evolved into something more disturbing. Photos of bacteria under microscopes flooded my phone, magnified images of germs with captions about contamination spreading through unwashed skin, each message more frantic than the last. I showed them to Dad, who immediately contacted his lawyer. The emergency custody paperwork felt like betrayal typed out in legal terms, emotional abuse, and psychological harm, reducing our family to checkboxes on official forms. Catherine, Mom's pottery class friend, called that evening. Her voice was concerned as she explained that Mom hadn't attended class in 3 months, but kept paying the monthly fee. She'd told everyone she was too busy with family activities. Another lie exposed, another piece of Mom's carefully constructed facade crumbling. I spent hours scrolling through Mom's social media history that night. Hidden in private groups for OCD support, she'd been describing the cleansing hour as a protective measure. Other members praised her dedication to keeping her children safe from contamination. They validated her fears, reinforced her delusions. She'd found an echo chamber that told her she was right. Emma's behavior at school deteriorated rapidly. The nurse called Dad after finding her in the bathroom, hands bleeding from excessive washing. She'd been using the hottest water available, scrubbing until the skin peeled. When asked why, Emma just kept repeating that she felt dirty inside, that the contamination was spreading. Dad left work immediately. Why does Mom keep sending those germ photos to her own child? That seems like such a strange way to try to convince someone to come back home right now. Jake's sessions with the school counselor revealed the depth of his confusion. He told her he missed Mom but was terrified of her. He loved her but didn't want to go home. The counselor documented his conflicted attachment, noting how he'd flinch when discussing water or cleanliness, but still drew pictures of our family together. The package appeared on our doorstep during what should have been Mom's supervised visitation time. Dad found it returning from work, white robes, neatly folded, with a note about maintaining purity. I grabbed them while my siblings slept and threw them in the apartment building's incinerator. Watching the fabric burn, ash floating up the chimney, I thought about purification and what it really meant. Dad's boss suggested he take family leave after Mom called his workplace repeatedly, claiming he'd kidnapped us. She'd convinced the receptionist she was calling about a medical emergency, only to launch into accusations about contamination and unsafe environments. His colleagues looked at him differently now, whispered in the break room. Our family's dysfunction had spread beyond our walls. The school implemented mandatory weekly check-ins for all 3 of us. Emma's sessions produced disturbing artwork, pictures of fire and water, stick figures drowning in red waves. The counselor kept them in a special file that grew thicker each week. Jake drew houses with no doors, families separated by thick black lines. Mom's stalking escalated. She followed the school bus one morning, waving frantically at Jake through the window. He ducked down, crying so hard the driver had to pull over. Other kids stared and whispered. By lunch, everyone knew Jake's mom was the crazy lady who chased the bus. The principal banned her from school property that afternoon. Her meltdown at the school gates made things worse. She screamed about contaminated cafeteria food, about bacteria in the water fountains, about the filth we were exposed to daily. Security had to escort her off the premises while my classmates watched through classroom windows. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor and never resurface. Grandma's house became our refuge, but even there, the past haunted us. I found Mom's college yearbook in a box of old photos. Her freshman year smile was bright, genuine. By sophomore year, she'd disappeared from group photos, her individual portrait showing hollow eyes and a forced smile. The transformation was stark, before and after her assault, though I only knew that from context. Dad finally admitted he'd noticed Mom's quirks early in their marriage. The way she'd rewash already clean dishes, how she'd shower twice after going anywhere crowded. He'd thought they were preferences, maybe mild germophobia. He'd never imagined she was reliving trauma, never suspected the depth of her compulsions. Family therapy turned explosive when Jake announced he hated Mom. Emma immediately defended her, insisting she was just trying to protect us. They screamed at each other while the therapist took notes. I sat between them, understanding both perspectives, hating that I could see Mom's humanity even as I recognized her abuse. The session ended with Jake in tears and Emma refusing to speak. The therapist explained privately that trauma could lie dormant dormant for years before children triggered its resurgence. Dad's face crumbled as he realized Emma's birth had coincided with Mom's breakdown. The timeline was too precise to be coincidental. Mom's assault, her pregnancy, her escalating compulsions, all connected by invisible threads of unprocessed trauma. Late nights at Grandma's, I researched obsessively. Old newspaper archives revealed the campus assault that destroyed Mom's life. The dates aligned perfectly, 9 months before Emma's birth. Mom had carried her rapist's child, though DNA tests years later proved Emma was Dad's. But trauma didn't care about biological facts. In Mom's broken mind, contamination had taken root. The breaking point came when Mom entered our house while we were at therapy. Dad found her in the bathroom, adjusting the shower temperature with her old thermometer. She'd used her key, the one Dad forgot she had. The bathroom smelled like bleach. She'd been cleaning, preparing for our return to the ritual. Police finally had enough to arrest her for breaking and entering. We watched from Grandma's living room window as they led Mom away in handcuffs. She looked small in the back of the police car, her face pressed against the window, mouthing words we couldn't hear. Jake turned away, but Emma watched until the car disappeared. I stood between them, feeling the family fracture along invisible fault lines. Dad signed papers for Mom's psychiatric evaluation as her next of kin. His hands shook as he wrote his name, authorizing doctors to examine the woman he'd loved, to medicate her, to keep her from us. Each signature felt like another nail in our family's coffin. The social worker explained it was necessary, but necessary had never felt so much like betrayal. Emma stopped eating. She pushed food around her plate, claiming contamination. No amount of reassurance could convince her the food was safe. Her ribs started showing through her shirts. The pediatrician mentioned hospitalization if her weight dropped further. Dad aged years and days, gray spreading through his hair like ash. Small victories felt monumental. Jake took a normal shower at Grandma's, water at a reasonable temperature, no counting required. We celebrated quietly, afraid to jinx it, but progress wasn't linear. I found him in the bathroom days later, hand under running water, counting slowly to 30 like Mom used to make us. Old habits died hard, especially those carved into us by trauma. My first visit to Mom at the psychiatric facility was surreal. She sat across from me in a sterile visiting room, medicated but still fixated on purification. She explained calmly how the doctors didn't understand the importance of cleanliness, how they were letting contamination spread. Her words were measured, rational sounding if you didn't know the context, but her eyes held the same fervent belief that had driven her to burn us. Dad tried explaining Mom's condition to us in age-appropriate terms. Mental illness like a broken bone that needed time to heal. Medication like a cast for her mind. Recovery possible but requiring years of treatment. Jake asked if she'd ever be normal. Dad couldn't answer. None of us knew what normal meant anymore. The night Dad cried changed everything. We'd never seen him break down before. He sobbed at the kitchen table, admitting he'd failed to protect us, failed to see the signs, failed as a father and husband. We surrounded him, 3 damaged kids comforting their broken father. The reversal felt wrong but necessary. We were all victims of Mom's illness, even Dad. Grandma's confession came during a quiet moment folding laundry. She'd started seeing a therapist too, working through guilt about missing warning signs in Mom's childhood, the excessive hand washing after sleepovers, the panic attacks during health class, the way she'd scrub herself raw after swimming in public pools, red flags dismissed as quirks, symptoms mistaken for personality traits. I carried the unique burden of understanding. I could see Mom's perspective, the trauma that broke her, the compulsion to protect us from her own contamination, but I also felt our scars, remembered the scalding water, the fear, the confusion. Holding both truths felt like being torn in half. The therapist called it complex trauma, but labels didn't make it easier. The Guardian ad litem interview loomed. A stranger would determine our fate based on a few conversations. We practiced what to say, but Emma went off script, announcing she wanted to live with Mom despite everything. The Guardian's poker face gave nothing away as she documented Emma's trauma bond, visible in every desperate defense of our abuser. Mom's sister Claire flew in from Portland, a reunion 5 years in the making. She'd been cut off for suggesting therapy, banished for questioning Mom's rules. She brought printed emails, years of rejected attempts to reconnect, each one more desperate than the last. Another family relationship sacrificed to Mom's illness. The custody hearing approached like a storm system. Dad's lawyer documented everything, the burns, the psychiatric notes, the escalating behavior. Our life reduced to exhibits and evidence. I felt sick seeing photos of Emma's scarred shoulders projected on a courtroom screen, our trauma displayed for strangers to judge. Mom's parents arrived for the hearing, my grandfather muttering about family business being made public. They'd enabled her for years, dismissing concerns as overprotection. Now faced with evidence of abuse, they retreated into denial. Family loyalty twisted into complicity. They sat behind Mom in court, a united front against reality. Jake testified via closed-circuit TV, too scared to face Mom directly. His small voice echoed through speakers as he explained loving her but not feeling safe. The contradiction tore him apart, visible in every stuttered word. Mom watched the screen, tears streaming down her face, finally seeing the damage through her son's eyes. The court-appointed psychiatrist testified about treatment timelines with clinical detachment. Years of therapy, medication adjustments, no guarantees. Mom's prognosis depended on factors beyond anyone's control. The judge took notes, reducing our family's pain to legal precedent. Justice felt cold in that sterile courtroom. Mom took the stand against her lawyer's advice. She broke down describing her assault, the contamination that followed, her desperate need to keep us clean. The courtroom shifted uncomfortably as she detailed her compulsions. I saw her clearly then, not a monster but a broken woman who'd broken us in turn. Victim and perpetrator, both and neither. Mom kept her key all this time? That's such a strange detail to overlook when Dad's trying to protect everyone. Makes me wonder what else he might have forgotten about in the middle of all this chaos. The judge granted Dad full custody with supervised visits pending Mom's treatment progress. Mom collapsed at the verdict, Claire and her parents surrounding her while court officers ushered us out. The hallway split into camps, Dad's family on one side, Mom's on the other. I stood in the middle, belonging nowhere. The drive to our new apartment passed in silence. Emma asked when we could see Mom again, her voice small and hopeful. Dad's hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The future stretched ahead, uncertain and frightening. We were safe from Mom, but not from what she'd done to us. That first night in our new home, I heard water running. Emma stood at the bathroom sink, testing the temperature over and over, trying to get it right. Not too hot, not too cold, but some impossible perfect medium that would make her feel clean. I watched her repeat the ritual Mom had taught us, trauma echoing through generations. celebrations. The new school district meant fresh starts and curious stares. Dad enrolled us with hope that geography could erase history, but trauma traveled with us, packed between our clothes and books. Emma's new teacher called within a week about unusual bathroom behavior. The cycle continued in a new setting. Mom's first supervised visit at the family center felt like a performance. She brought antibacterial gel as gifts, unable to stop herself even under observation. The supervisor noted her continued fixation on cleanliness. Jake refused her hug, maintaining boundaries that broke her heart. She crumbled but didn't push, a small sign of progress. I started my own therapy, finally admitting what I'd hidden from everyone. Sometimes I missed the certainty of the ritual, the clear rules, the predictable schedule, the feeling of being clean, even if it came with pain. Chaos felt worse than abuse sometimes. The therapist didn't judge, just helped me untangle the web Mom had woven in my mind. Dad tried introducing us to Sarah from work 6 weeks after the custody verdict. She showed up for dinner with a nervous smile and homemade brownies. Jake immediately started talking about Mom's contamination theories while Emma demonstrated her hand-washing technique at the kitchen sink. Sarah's smile faltered as she watched Emma scrub her already raw hands. The evening ended with Sarah making polite excuses about an early meeting. Dad walked her to her car, shoulders slumped in defeat. The call about Grandma's stroke came during Emma's therapy session. Dad's face went gray as he listened to the doctor explain the severity. A blood clot, left side affected, prognosis uncertain. We rushed to the hospital, finding Grandma hooked to machines, her right hand moving weakly while her left stayed still. The restraining order meant Mom couldn't visit. Jake asked if Grandma was being punished for helping us. Nobody had an answer. Emma's hand-washing escalated after seeing Grandma in the hospital bed. Her therapist documented the regression, recommending residential treatment at a specialized facility. The brochures showed smiling kids in group therapy, peaceful grounds, structured schedules. Dad stared at them for hours, wrestling with the decision to send his 9-year-old daughter away. Emma overheard him on the phone with the intake coordinator and locked herself in the bathroom, water running for 40 minutes before we could coax her out. I found Jake in our bathroom at 2 in the morning, his hand under the faucet, lips moving silently, counting, just like Mom taught us. The water wasn't scalding, but the ritual remained, 30 seconds exactly. He jumped when he saw me, yanking his hand back like he'd been caught stealing. We stood there in the dark, both understanding the compulsion, neither able to stop it completely. Mom's letter arrived on a Tuesday, forwarded through her treatment facility. Her handwriting looked different, steadier, less frantic. She wrote about art therapy, about painting her feelings instead of washing them away. A photo fell out when I unfolded the pages. Mom standing next to an easel, her painting showing dark water gradually lightening to clear blue, progress measured in brushstrokes. Dad discovered my secret visits when the facility called about updating the approved visitor list. I'd been going every other week, taking 2 buses to reach the psychiatric hospital. He confronted me in the kitchen, hurt radiating from every word. I tried explaining how I needed to see her getting better, needed to understand if healing was possible. He slammed his hand on the counter, making Emma flinch from across the room. The anger drained from his face immediately, replaced by exhaustion. Family therapy erupted into chaos when the therapist suggested discussing future contact with Mom. Jake screamed that he never wanted to see her again. Emma sobbed that Mom was sick, not evil. I sat silent, torn between protecting my siblings and acknowledging Mom's humanity. Dad tried mediating but ended up yelling too. The therapist called for a 2-week cooling period with individual sessions only. We left separately, the family unit fracturing further. Claire called with an offer that split us deeper. She could take Emma for the summer, get her away from triggers, work with specialists in Portland. Dad considered it seriously, desperate for solutions. Emma begged not to be sent away. Jake said it wasn't fair that Emma got to escape while he stayed. I threatened to run away if Dad split us up. The kitchen table became a battleground of competing needs and impossible choices. Mom's parents filed for grandparent rights, hiring an expensive lawyer who specialized in family law. They claimed Dad was alienating them from their grandchildren, denying their legal right to visitation. The paperwork arrived while Grandma was still in rehabilitation, learning to walk again. Dad threw the papers across the room, then spent an hour picking them up, smoothing out the creases. Another court battle loomed, another round of strangers deciding our fate. Emma's crisis came suddenly. I found her in the bathroom at dawn, skin scraped raw from a pumice stone, blood mixing with water in the sink. She'd been trying to remove the contamination Mom always talked about, scrubbing until she hit living tissue. The infection risk was serious. Dad bundled her into the car while I stayed with Jake, who watched from his bedroom doorway, face blank with shock. The hospital kept Emma for a week. Antibiotics for the infection, psychiatric evaluation for the self-harm. Mom somehow learned about the hospitalization and showed up during her supervised community time, pressing her face against the hospital windows, searching for Emma's room. Security removed her, but not before I saw her face. Desperate, broken, still trying to protect us from invisible threats. Another violation of the visitation agreement. Another mark against her recovery. I screamed at Mom through the hospital's glass doors, months of suppressed rage erupting. She froze on the sidewalk, watching her oldest child tell her to stop, to leave us alone, to accept what she'd done. My voice cracked on the accusations. Her face crumpled, but she didn't argue, didn't defend herself. She just stood there absorbing my anger until security escorted her to the parking lot. The last thing I saw was her shoulders shaking as she walked away. Jake found me later, whispering questions about Emma's condition. He'd overheard Mom during a supervised visit talking about the dirty world, about contamination spreading. He wanted to know if Emma would die from the infection, if the dirt had finally gotten inside her like Mom always warned. I held him while he cried, feeling the weight of Mom's delusions crushing another generation. Dad's breakdown happened in the hospital chapel. I found him talking with the chaplain, a gentle woman who just listened as he poured out years of guilt. He'd been at work every Saturday during cleansing hour. He'd dismissed Mom's quirks as harmless. He'd failed to protect his children from their own mother. The chaplain didn't offer platitudes, just sat with him in his pain. I backed away, giving him space to grieve the family we'd never really been. Mom's therapist arranged an emergency family session after Emma's hospitalization. She explained that Emma needed to hear Mom take responsibility, needed to see accountability to begin healing. Mom sat across from us in the sterile meeting room, medication keeping her steady but not erasing the pain in her eyes. She looked at Emma's bandaged hands and something shifted in her expression. The words came slowly at first. Mom admitted she'd been wrong. No excuses about contamination or protection, just acknowledgement that she'd hurt us, that her illness had become our trauma. Emma asked why she'd done it if she loved us. Mom explained without about defending, talked about her own assault and how it had twisted her mind. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just understanding. Jake finally cried, months of held-back emotion flooding out. We sat in that room, broken people trying to find a way forward. The therapist suggested a symbolic breaking of the ritual. Each family member would throw away something connected to cleansing hour. Dad went first, tossing the old thermometer Mom used to test water temperature. Jake threw in a washcloth, the kind he used to bite. Emma added a bottle of antibacterial gel. I contributed pages from Mom's psychiatric notes I'd kept hidden. Mom watched us destroy the artifacts of her compulsion, tears streaming silently. Mom made a choice that surprised everyone. She voluntarily extended her treatment, choosing to stay in the facility even though her mandatory hold was ending. She wanted to be sure, she explained. Sure she was stable, sure she wouldn't relapse, sure she could be around us without causing more harm. The sacrifice meant missing more of our lives, but she finally understood that our safety mattered more than her need to be near us. Dad apologized to us formally, acknowledging his role in enabling Mom's behavior through ignorance. He should have asked questions, should have been present, should have noticed the signs. We didn't offer easy forgiveness, but we acknowledged his words. Healing required honesty from everyone, even those who'd failed through inaction rather than illness. I helped my siblings create new traditions to replace what Mom had taken. Sunday became movie night, with popcorn made at normal temperatures and no rituals required. We picked comedies, nothing with water or washing or family dysfunction. Jake chose superhero films. Emma preferred animated features. I just wanted to see them smile without checking the clock or fearing what came next. 3 months passed. Mom earned her first unsupervised visit through consistent treatment compliance and behavioral progress. We met at a neutral location, a park with open spaces and easy exits. The hugs felt awkward, tentative. Mom kept her hands visible, didn't mention cleanliness once. She asked about school, about friends, about anything except water or washing or contamination. Progress measured in normal conversations. Emma showed Mom a drawing from art therapy, a family portrait with everyone holding hands but standing at different distances. Mom studied it carefully, noting how Emma had drawn her the furthest away but still connected. They talked about boundaries, about love existing alongside necessary distance. Jake played on the swings, watching us from afar, not ready to engage but no longer running away. The visit ended with planning for the next one. Mom accepted our conditions without argument. Public spaces only. No gifts related to cleaning. No discussions of contamination. Dad would decide frequency based on our comfort levels. She agreed to everything, understanding that rebuilding trust would take years, if it happened at all. 1 year after the journal discovery, we gathered for Emma's birthday. Mom attended, taking her medication faithfully, continuing therapy, respecting every boundary we'd established. She watched Emma blow out candles on a cake they'd baked together during a supervised visit. Jake actually laughed at something silly Dad said. I documented the moment with my phone, capturing our imperfect family choosing to heal rather than perpetuate cycles. The water in our new house ran at whatever temperature anyone wanted. Hot for Dad's showers, lukewarm for Jake's quick washes, cool for Emma's sensitive skin. No timers, no counting, no rituals, just water serving its purpose without the weight of trauma. Sunday had become just another day, marked by chosen gatherings rather than forced purification. We bore scars, visible and hidden. Trust remained fragile. Some days were harder than others. Emma still occasionally checked water temperature obsessively. Jake still counted sometimes. I still felt the phantom burn of too hot water during stress. Mom still fought her compulsions daily. Dad still carried guilt. But we'd chosen recovery over repetition, understanding over abandonment, difficult healing over easy destruction. The journey toward wholeness stretched ahead, long and uncertain. Mom might relapse, we might struggle. The damage went deep, woven into our foundations. But in that moment, watching my family exist imperfectly together, everyone committed to breaking the cycle, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Not safety, that would take time. Not forgiveness, that remained complicated. But possibility. The possibility that trauma didn't have to be inherited, that patterns could be broken, that even the deepest wounds might eventually heal. Each small normal moment felt like victory against the generational trauma that had nearly drowned us all. Thanks for getting to the end of the story. Like for more just like this.